Hi, my name is David Orr. I'm a student at Arkansas Tech University. My degree is in Professional Studies, Information Technology. Today I'm here with Crystal Bond from McKayo Enterprises. Crystal Bond founded McKayo Enterprises in 2015 when she recognized a shortage of cartographers and photogrammetrists. Cartographers use computers to draw maps similar to what we would see on Google. Crystal's idea for her business is to offer one-to-one coaching services for users of Environmental Research Institute's ArcGIS software systems. The coaching service is a specialized training method which is matched to the client's needs. The purpose of the project was to identify the shortage of cartographers and photogrammetrists within the states of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And of those three states, which state had the highest demand? Also within the project, recruiting methods were taken into consideration as to how to recruit new STEM workers into the cartography field. And as a means, we also looked for the median wage and benefits that were offered by the public and private sectors. The problem was first identified by the NGA in a study that was conducted by the Committee on the Future U.S. Workforce for Geospatial Intelligence. They project a national growth up into the year 2030, but because our research used the workforce data from the state of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, we found that there was a discrepancy within the data. And we'll see that as we progress further through the presentation. So as a means, we decided to use information that was gathered from the United States Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and we kept the study focused between the years of 2014 and 2024. As projected by the United States Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they project over the next 10-year period of time a 29% increase, or 3,600 new jobs added as cartographers. The consequences of not assessing this problem are multiple. For McKayo Enterprises, it would be how do they realize the return on their investment over a 10-year period of time, and will there be enough demand for a need for their program? Within the private sector, the consequence could be not adequately analyzing air routes, land and sea transportation routes for weather, better traffic patterns, fuel consumption. And within the public sector, the threat of disease, mitigation of pandemics, or an understaffed agency, which could lead to other security issues within the United States. The research methods, we created 3 sample pools within each state. One sample pool was created within the Department of Workforce Labor, another sample pool was GIS employees, and a third sample pool within each state was GIS employers. Surveys were used because they remove interviewer bias, and they're an inexpensive way to reach the proposed sample population. And the data can be tabulated quickly. This is a sample of the research survey that was used on SurveyMonkey. Full copies of the research are available in the handout that I gave to you before we started our presentation this afternoon. The participation rate for employees surveyed, we contacted 3 employees in each state for a total of 9 employees. Of the 9 surveys that were sent, only 2 responded. For employers, we sent 4 surveys to each of the sample pools within the study. Of the total 12 surveys that were sent, we only received 2 responses. 1 response from the state of Arkansas and 1 response from the state of Oklahoma. After the returns of our survey, we took the survey information and we compared it to data information that was received from the Department of the Workforce Labor and the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And what we found is that the median wages are seen to be equivalent on the responses that were received from the employers who did respond to the surveys. This information source was sourced from GIS employers and GIS employees. We find that the yearly salary range is between $43,000 to $73,000 a year as reported, which is actually within the range of what we see as the median income, where we see that employers say that they offer is $21.63 an hour, and employee salary reported as being earned is $27.98. So we go back to our median range, we see that's within reason to what was reported by the national agency and state agencies. Current GIS employment levels were actually pertaining to cartographers and photogrammetrists, and they were rounded off to the nearest 10. When we look at a national scale, we see that at a national scale, there's 11,970 cartographers employed. And then within the states of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, we see that Texas has the greatest demand or the greatest number of cartographers working in that state. The benefits offered, as reported by employers, employees, and we look at it over which offers the best benefits, we see that the public sector actually receives more benefits than the private sector. We asked about the training responses because of McHale Enterprises' product of offering coaching services. And of the employers who responded, only 50% of the employers felt that offering training was one of the best practices to use as retaining their employees. But then, when we go back and we ask, does your employer offer training, we see that 100% of the respondents of the employees said yes. And they also felt, employees also felt that their job became more difficult when there were new releases of updates or software. However, we find it to be in contradiction to what was reported by the employees, the employer. The employer says that their workforce becomes more efficient when software releases are put out or when updates are put out. When we look at the demand of being a current demand, and we look at the job postings, what jobs are available within the states of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and we used Indeed.com as a means to see what jobs were listed for cartographers and photogrammetrists. We looked nationally, there were 7,615 jobs listed. And then of the jobs nationally that were listed, for the occupation within the research, we find that within the state of Arkansas, there are 8 GIS positions listed, but of those 8 GIS positions listed, only 2 positions are available for cartographers. And here at the state of Oklahoma, when we go back and we look at the previous slide of the employment rate being 1,490, it stands within reason that the state of Oklahoma, has, Texas, I'll have to go back on that. This would stand to reason. If we go back and we look at the previous slide, in the state of Texas with 1,490 employees working within the industry at this point as cartographers, we see that the GIS positions offered, there are 535 GIS positions available within the state, but within that state, only 2 of the jobs are for cartographers. And we see the same thing here. So overall, within the GIS industry itself, there is a great demand for GIS workers, but when we look at cartography and photogrammetrists, the number is far smaller than what is offered for the overall industry itself. Of the job postings, to verify the information that we received or that we acquired from Indeed, within our research surveys, we asked, does the company require a degree, so we could get an idea of how valuable a coaching service would be to helping individuals gain employment as cartographers. Of those responded, does the company require a degree by the employees? 50% said yes. Employers were not asked that question. How many years' experience does the company require for a new hire to have? It's an average of 4 years of all the respondents. The title of the job with the most openings, we see that the title of the job is a GIS specialist cartographer, and of the least, we see that the job opening is a GIS manager. How long did the openings go unfilled? 100% of the respondents skipped the question. Employment projections. When we look at the occupation as listed by the United States Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they list it as being an individual as a cartographer, photogrammetrist as one job. So you can't consider a cartographer as one job and a photogrammetrist as another job. As considered by government agencies and state agencies, it's one job. Of the projections from 2014 to 2024, they project that there would be, in the state of Arkansas, a 31% change. Oklahoma is a 35% change, and Texas is a 41% change, with an average annual opening of 10 openings within the state of Oklahoma per year, and 110 openings within the state of Texas per year, and Arkansas with a rate of 0. The results of the survey. The employment projections were obtained from the national agencies and state agencies, but the data coming from them is 2 years older than the data that we collected in this research. We collected data in 2016, but the data that's being reported from national and state agencies is 2 years old. So we make some adjustments for that data. With the low rate of return, survey research is inconclusive. Because of the low rate of return surveys from this research, it's inconclusive to say that this is really what the national and state agencies are projecting, and what we're getting back from employers and employees currently, that these numbers will hold true over that 10-year period of time. Both private and public sectors on the recruitment side do offer benefits. A college degree is a stipulation for employment. Although we go back and we look at that research and we say, well, only 50% responded back that a college degree was a requirement, there are other indicators within the research that show that overall it is a requirement for employment. And it's usually an average of 4 years is required for employment. 100% of GIS employers responded said their employers offer training, and we talked about that earlier. 50% of the GIS employee respondents felt that training their GIS workforce was their best practice. When we look at happiness in the job, and it's really important because we spend a lot of our time at work, we find that most people within their current position in the GIS industry are very happy with what they do. As an average level of 4.5. We scaled it as 0 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. And then when we look at the profession overall of the respondents, we see that they're very happy within the profession. GIS employees' effectiveness after software updates are released. 100% of the employees said that they were less effective, lasting for 1 to 2 months after new releases of updates and software came out. Of the GIS employees, however, we find that contradiction, as I said earlier, that they said that their staff becomes more efficient. So there might be some disconnect here between what the employee is perceiving and what the employer is perceiving as how they become more efficient. And I don't know if maybe perhaps we could see if the employer realizes that a month after they become more efficient. We talked about this earlier. of the cartographers and photogrammetrists positions, nationally, there are 7,615 jobs available as listed on Indeed. Of those positions that are available, there are 2 positions in Arkansas, 1 in Oklahoma, and 2 in Texas. The national average of employed cartographers and photogrammetrists as of today is 12,135, but this does not include self-employed GIS cartographers. Of the national numbers of employed cartographers and photogrammetrists, on average, there are 50 in Arkansas, there's 105 in Oklahoma, 1,400 in Texas. Of the jobs posted, the rate of increase for new cartographers and photogrammetrists, there is a 4% increase in the state of Arkansas, a 1% increase in the state of Oklahoma, and only 0.13% in Texas, which we find this number to be contradictory to the 14,100 and something as listed originally. Of the GIS employees who responded, there was an average of 2 GIS job openings within all the states in the study. But because the study is inconclusive, we can't say that this is valid. One position is available for a cartographer and photogrammetrist in the state of Oklahoma, which holds to looking at the earlier slide where we showed, looking at Indeed and what jobs were available, we saw that we had seen that there was 2 jobs available within the state of Oklahoma. So this seems to hold valid from the research findings. As we talked about earlier, the predicted need from 2014 to 2024 reveals that greater details are needed to fully assess the future demand of cartographers and photogrammetrists, only because of the rate of returns in the surveys. Data such as attrition rates, graduation rates, cartographer and photogrammetrists, positions created by overall GIS growth, unemployment levels of GIS, professional and economic data could provide a more conclusive evaluation of the demand. The survey sample return for this report is far too small to draw a significant conclusion of the needs for training workers for the GIS industry, particularly cartographers and photogrammetrists. The conclusion of the study. The study shows the regional demand for GIS workers to be too low in the states examined. Until more data can be collected to determine the regional need for services, I strongly recommend that Makeo Enterprises reconsider establishing coaching centers. The first option would be to conduct some more research on the GIS industry in the identified states, so within the state of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, before establishing coaching centers in any of those states. The interest and value of training through education or through specialized instruction should be, as proposed, the coaching centers should be researched and further outreach to the industry is recommended. Should Makeo Enterprises want to proceed with the creation of a GIS coaching center without further data collection, it would be wise to do so on a very small scale to begin with. The proposed option is to go with option 1, be to keep all costs as low as possible until there is some indication of what the demand is in the GIS for training in the GIS industry. And to broaden the services, as we had seen earlier, there's a wide need within the GIS industry, but to come in and look at cartographers and photogrammetrists, I think it just narrows the field too small. But if you were to widen that and look at the overall industry itself, you would see a greater demand. If Makeo Enterprises determines a greater regional need in the states of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas has been identified by further research, then I would suggest moving into phase 2, option 2. And option two, as you had gotten the handout, is a breakdown of how to proceed with going with option two. And this would be the second part. And that's the next, and then option two continued. So that's it. Thank you for the opportunity to work with you, Crystal. I really appreciate it, and thanks for working with me to get my project taken care of. I
This has
appreciate
been
it.
great. You've been great. Thank you, David.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Did you got any questions?
You know, this is very informative, and from what you've told me, actually I had a question, but then later on in your presentation you answered it. So, it was about which state ultimately was the one that had the most jobs and which one didn't. So, which one had the least.
Yeah.
So, you've answered all my questions in your presentation.
But if something should come up as you're thinking through your problem, it's,
Well, with my
yeah,
hand,
yeah, feel more than happy
Yeah.
to contact me. I've collected so much data,
there is.
and I could help you work through any remaining questions you may have.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.